You've survived another week. You know, this month marks an observance of the indomitable spirit of the black woman. 5 things and more that nobody has ever told you about the Willie Lynch Syndrome. Michael J. Woodland talks about black women in the shooting sports. Some thoughts about 9/11. I'm unboxing the AirForce airgun called the Condor SS. First thoughts on it as an urban thing. And depending on whether I get a call back or not, if we have some special guests this week, as I'm doing it live at the last minute. This is episode 536 of your favorite righteous podcast, The Black Man with the Gun Show. Hi, my name is Reverend Ken Blanchard, the guy known as the Black Man with a Gun, and this is the podcast of the African American gun community, amplifying our voices with American history, sharing training, news, and positive information for all America. Welcome to the show. If you're new to the show, I want to say hey, and thank you for joining with me again. And if you've been around a while, you know I've done a lot of stuff on this show. And I have realized over the years that I get a chance to inspire, to entertain, to inform, to enlighten, to just share some information with you. And that's like really, really cool. I want to thank you for being a part of my Facebook page and following me on Twitter and all the social media stuff that I'm doing. I got some real friends because of this show. As a gun owner, you quickly become involved in the political and cultural realities that you might not have known existed before. You find out online how cool and how uncool some people are. When I got started, I didn't know the history behind gun control. I didn't know as half much as I do now about culture, about social norms, about how people act. I quickly became educated, though, on all the players in this realm. The National Rifle Association, the Second Amendment Foundation, the National Sports Shooting Foundation, Safari International, Ducks Unlimited, you name it. I've been in the midst of them, talked to some people, seen them behind the scenes. I tried to be a player in this club, but I don't have the green. It just didn't happen. But in this realm, me and you, we work in it. This show is sponsored in part by the United States Concealed Carry Association. You can become a member of the USCCA. You can get insurance from them and more. If you go to that link that's on blackmanwithagun.com, I'll get credit for it. Also, it has been sponsored for, I want to say, a good 8 years by crossbreedholsters.com. I don't care if you got a Nerf gun. Support Crossbreed Holsters. They're good people. In the past couple of weeks, down here underneath the washer and the dryer, I've been trying to motivate and help all the new people who are in this space. They are exploding. There are African American gun owners all over the place, and they're showing their pictures of their guns and their holsters and where they're shooting, and it's a cool thing. I give a lot of credit to Colion Noir, though. That guy has been doing YouTube videos for like 12 years. 12 years. He inspired a generation and a half to go online, to try shooting, to try to one-up him, and all that. Colion's been doing it. And then there's a whole bunch of new leaders. I've just picked a dozen and stuck them on my website. But there are more. And that's why you see me promote them, because they're doing what I tried to do and what I did do over the last 30 years. I saw a post from Victor. He said, what do you do when you're older? When you started off, you were a martial artist and a shooter and an athlete, and then now you're older and you're not as fast and you're not as keen, not as sharp. And the answer to that is you coach, you inspire, you pass on the education, you pass on the failures, you pass on knowledge. And that's what I'm doing here. I love America. I love this country. I love the things that it stands for. And every once in a while, folks kind of go off kilter. They get fired up, go in the wrong direction, step on themselves. And I'm going to be mature enough to give them a mulligan pick them back up, and set them on the right path again. Because if I didn't, I'd be a hypocrite. Because I've messed up more than anybody should be allowed. Truth be told. In my history pieces, I'm trying to do with that is to bring you some information you might never heard before or thought you knew and how it influences the gun community. Everything that I bring here is for all Americans, regardless of color, creed, religion, who you sleep with, all that good stuff. One of the guys who was doing it is a guy by the name of Maj Toure. Maj he calls himself a solutionary hip-hop artist turned Second Amendment activist. He's from North Philly. He's been rocking it since about 2015. And he's been featured in the New York Times and Breitbart News and NPR and Fox and CNN and RA News. And he's been doing a lot of stuff. He's been on a tour around the country. Here's Maj.
Peace. What's up, everybody? This is Maj Toure, the Solutionary. I want y'all to go check out our GoFundMe and our website, officialblackgunsmatter.com. Support, show love, take pictures, have a good time, be safe, be solutionary. Peace.
And you can find out everything about Maj at officialblackgunsmatter.com. Another rock star, my friend and brother, Michael J. Woodland, is up next.
Thank you, Ken, and welcome to another Tips and Review segment. I am Michael Woodland, and today we're going to discuss some women who contributed to our way of life and the shooting community. When you ask me about some people who inspire me and who I look up to, that could be a long list. When the question is, can you tell me about some women who inspire me? Well, that list will be a little bit more detailed. From the start, I will give recognition to the first and only female first sergeant I served with in the military while on drill sergeant duty. First Sergeant Latricia Wagner was a powerhouse that a lot of people slept on, but she ran with the best and was by far the best first sergeant I had in my career. Another black female who stands out is Command Sergeant Major Teresa King, who was the first black female who was in charge of the United States Army Drill Sergeant School program. Now, if you are talking about firearms, Francine Jones is who I will recite. For those who do not know, Miss Jones is a black female who resides in Gwinnett County, Georgia, and is the owner of Bubba Guns Sales. So, some of you are probably saying, what is so special about that? To sum it up, she is one of the few African American women in the United States who hold a federal firearms license, for short, an FFL. From what I understand, she is able to secure firearms and transfer firearms quicker and lower than her competition as needed at a very reasonable price. That sounds like deals to be made, which leaves everyone in a win-win situation. Now, I wonder if I can get her on the range and throw some rounds at a few targets. But then again, she is not that far from me, and I will eventually go ask for myself. Time will tell. Until next week, keep the trigger pull level and your sight picture steady. For those who looking to contact me, visit blackmanwithagun.com and under the Leaders tab, click on my name, Michael Woodland, and shoot me an email. Until next week, keep shooting, keep practicing, and have fun. Back to you, Ken.
Thanks, big guy. Now, I wish I could tell you how easy it is to work with Michael. I wish I could tell you how much respect I have for the brother. I wish I could tell you and have you feel how much love I have for this guy. He's a veteran. He's been wounded in battle. He's a father. He's just a really, really good guy. And I am blessed to have him on this show. So check out his website. If you're in the area, in South Carolina, in Georgia, get him as a teacher. Get him as an instructor. Get him as a friend. It's September, so I want to just start off remembering that horrific event that happened on 9/11, 2001. It's been 16 years now, and America was forever changed by terrorism. It wasn't the first time that this country has been terrorized, however. We as Americans have been terrorized by domestic terrorism for as long as there has been a country. We have organizations of domestic terrorism. We have lone wolf terrorists. We have people who are mentally unstable that seek to cause and disrupt our way of life. Terrorism seems to be easy to address. You think you can just increase security, you can destroy jihadist organizations, you can just stop violent extremism. But a terrorist can be shot or shut up in prison and nothing changes. You and I know that a weapon of mass destruction could be as simple as a Toyota Prius mowing down innocent people, or it could be a grandfather's gun that was left unattended and unsecured. I plan to talk about domestic terrorism in this coming month, just to get you prepared mentally. But I also don't want you to forget what happened on September 11, 2001. 19 men hijacked 4 fuel-laden U.S. commercial airlines and crashed them into each tower of the New York City's World Trade Center complex, the Pentagon building in Washington, D.C., and a field in Shanksville, Pennsylvania. The attacks caused a total of 2,996 deaths, making it the deadliest foreign attack ever on U.S. soil. It surpassed the 1941 attack on Pearl Harbor, which claimed 2,403 American lives. More than 6,000 others were injured in the 9/11 attacks. A group by the name of Al-Qaeda took credit for the attack. An earlier declaration of holy war against the U.S. by Al-Qaeda's leader, Osama bin Laden, was seen as the main motivator for the hijackers. 15 of the 19 hijackers were from Saudi Arabia, and the rest originated from the United Arab Emirates, Egypt, and Lebanon. Some had lived in Europe and were able to assimilate in the U.S. In the last few years, terrorist attacks have moved off of airplanes and trains and onto streets and into private gatherings. The list of headline-grabbing incidents stretches from the Boston Marathon in 2013 to the boulevards of Paris and a Christmas party in San Bernardino, even a gay nightclub in Orlando, Florida. Hey, it even hit an army base in 2009, and it's even been in France. The Orlando massacre, which left 49 people dead in addition to the shooter, was, again, one of the deadliest terrorist attacks on the U.S. since 9/11. These days, we wonder less whether a plane will blow up rather than a shooter will open fire in a terminal. Reports of gunfire on a recent Sunday evening in L.A. International Airport sent terrified people nearly stampeding out of the terminals and even onto the tarmac. It was a false alarm. Just a couple of loud noises somebody heard. These are some of the reasons why there is an increase in gun ownership in the African American community and America in general. People want to make it seem like it's all because of our recent president. No doubt, there's some fear connected to him too. But most of it is our surrounding, our environment. Many people understand how fragile our society is today, how unprepared most of us are, and how you can't rely on anybody but yourself. The government is here to protect the government. The police department is there to protect the government and themselves. And in case of domestic terrorism, national disaster, or natural disaster, you are on your own. For just a few minutes, if you allow me, I'd like to recognize the fallen and play something in your spirit that you will recognize and acknowledge with me, that anybody who listens to this show that considers themselves a friend of mine will never allow an incident to happen on their watch. You will be a first responder. You will put out the fire. You will do your best to stop the madness. Are you with me? The next time somebody asks you, why do you carry a firearm? Why are you into guns? Say it's for love. Say I do it because I love my country. I love my freedom. I love my family. I love my life. And I will protect them all. And if you can't say that, then I don't want to be your friend. Please, brother, please, sister, the next time somebody asks you, don't let them bait you with a race question. Or if somebody, not even in the media, another knucklehead is trying to twist the words and the reason why we do things and make it seem like it's got to be you against them and them against us. Dismiss that mess. You're better than that. Black Man with a Gun, Reloaded. Get the inside, the background, wisdom, information, and experiences of Reverend Ken Blanchard, CIA firearms instructor, gun rights activist, that has been involved in this community since 1991. Read about guns, the culture, the community, and the inside stuff behind what you see everywhere else. You can get it firsthand from the guy they call the Black Man with a Gun in his book on Amazon.com. Black Man with a Gun, Reloaded. One of my biggest discoveries starting out in the gun rights movement is when I realized that African American people, black people, are not monolithic. We don't all have the same agenda. We don't all vote the same. We don't have the same religion. Really, when you get down to the brass tacks of it, the only thing that we all have in common is a lack of our understanding of our history. We have a lot of similarities. The origin stories of the tribes and the nations and the countries that our ancestors were stolen from that became institutionalized slaves in the Americas. That part we got in common. The mixing of races and the colors and the shades and all that have left a dent, a wound that never quite healed. The African in America has an identity crisis, and we've had one for a while. In my time, Roots, the series, the book by Alex Haley, was the biggest back to Africa, back to our nationality, back to our ancestry movement that ever existed. But it has always been around. It has had different names. Back to Africa movement, colonization movement, Black Zionism, and even the Nation of Islam, the Rastafarian movement. There's been a lot. The Marcus Garvey time period. There's always been that same mentality. Solomon was right. There is nothing new under the sun. I remember back in the 70s when I was a little kid and I was hanging out with my cousins and they would take me to the blaxploitation movies of the 70s. You know, Shaft and Truck Turner and Isaac Hayes and Three the Hard Way and Fred Thompson and all the big ones. Black Belt Jones and Sheba. John Shaft, Cleopatra Jones, Foxy Brown, The Human Tornado, the Fred Williamson and the Richard Roundtree movies. Isaac Hayes. Superfly, Dolomite. See, I remember that time when I sat between my neighbor and my dad and they talked about how things were and how things should be. Back when I wore a dashiki and I sported an afro. And I was even contemplating changing my name and my religion to show that I was, quote, conscious, that I was woke and I was with it. It's pretty similar to that Ankh-wearing school of black consciousness you hear on social media right now. Nothing much has changed. But somewhere around the 70s, this document came out that all the cool kids were quoting about this guy named Willie Lynch. It seemed like it was legit. Nobody doubted it. It seemed to be proof why black people just couldn't get ahead. It seemed to be a sad but unpleasant truth. This reputed author, William Lynch, identifies himself as the master of a modest plantation in the British West Indies who has been summoned to the Virginia colony by local slave owners to advise them on problems they had been having in managing their slaves. And Willie Lynch briefly noted that their current violent method of handling unruly slaves, i.e. lynching, though the term is not used, is inefficient and counterproductive. Instead, he suggested they adopt his method, which consists of exploiting differences such as age and skin color in order to pit slaves against each other. In this method, he assures his host will control the slaves for at least the next 300 years. I bet you heard of Willie Lynch. Can I give you 5 things that nobody's ever told you about Willie Lynch?
The following program is intended for mature audiences.
I got 5 points, but really it all boils down to just one. It was all a lie. A myth. None of this is true. Willie Lynch is claimed to have delivered a letter, an address on the banks of the James River in Virginia in 1712 on how to control slaves within the colonies. He was supposedly told other slave masters that he had discovered the, quote, secret to controlling black slaves by setting them against one another. Problem with all this is William Lynch wasn't born until 1743. The word lynching is falsely attributed to Willie Lynch and maybe more accurately credited to Charles Lynch, a Virginia Justice of the Peace and militia officer during the American Revolution. I bet you find it hard to believe that all this is not true since it's been referenced by big-name people over the years. Minister Louis Farrakhan of the Nation of Islam, he quoted a speech at the Million Man March in October 1995. He later cited the same one as an obstacle to unite African Americans in his open letter regarding Millions More movement in 2005. The speech, Willie Lynch's speech, was also quoted during the 2001 presidential inauguration protest of W. Bush. Denzel Washington's character quoted extensively from the speech in a scene from the 2007 movie The Great Debaters. Yeah, you heard this thing a lot. Hip-hop artist Talib Kweli used it in his song, R.E. Definition, and from the album of Mos Def and Talib. Hip-hop artist Kendrick Lamar used it. He referenced it in the 2015 song in his album To Pimp a Butterfly. It has been ingrained in us through music and culture, but it is still not a fact. One of the most important points about the Willie Lynch Syndrome is that its effects are still recognized as legitimate concerns in present-day society. The fact that we are one against each other is a problem, not only in the African American community, but in America. I have seen and read different versions of the Willie Lynch letter. Different groups add bits and pieces to it for emphasis. The Willie Lynch letter is not only just an urban legend, it's a fabrication. There are no accounts of Willie Lynch, and all beyond an obvious forgery. There are no historians who believe that it is not a hoax. May I read it for you as I have found it? Gentlemen, I greet you here on the banks of the James River in the year of our Lord 1712. First, I shall thank you, the gentlemen of the colony of Virginia, for bringing me here. I am here to help you solve some of your problems with slaves. Your invitation reached me in my modest plantation in the West Indies, where I have experimented with some of the newest and still the oldest method for control of slaves. Ancient Rome would envy us if my program is implemented. As our boat sailed south on the James River, named for our illustrious King James, whose Bible we cherish, I saw enough to know that our problem is not unique. While Rome used cords or woods as crosses for standing human bodies along the old highways in great numbers, you are here using the tree and the rope on occasion. I caught the whiff of a dead slave hanging from a tree a couple miles back. You are losing valuable stock by hangings. You are having uprisings. Slaves are running away. Your crops are sometimes left in the fields too long for maximum profit. You suffer occasional fires. Your animals are killed. Gentlemen, you know what your problems are. I do not need to elaborate. I am not here to enumerate your problems. I am here to introduce you to a method of solving them. In my bag, I have a foolproof method for controlling your slaves. I guarantee every one of you that if you installed it, it will control the slaves for at least 300 years. My method is simple. Any member of your family or an overseer can use it. I have outlined a number of differences among the slaves, and I take these differences and I make them bigger. I use fear, distrust, and envy for control purposes. These methods have worked on my modest plantation in the West Indies, and it will work throughout the South. Take this simple list of differences and think about them. On the top of my list is age, but it is only there because it starts with an A. The second is color or shade. There is intelligence, size, sex, size of plantation, attitude of owner, whether the slaves live in the valley, on a hill, east or west, north, south, have fine or coarse hair, or is tall or short. Now that you have a list of differences, I shall give you an outline of action. But before that, I shall assure you that distrust is stronger than trust, and envy is stronger than adulation, respect, or admiration. The black slave, after receiving this indoctrination, shall carry on and will become self-refueling and self-generating for hundreds of years, maybe thousands. Don't forget, you must pitch the old black versus the young black males, the young black male against the old black male. You must use the dark-skinned slaves versus the light-skinned slaves. You must use the female versus the male versus the female. You must always have your servants and overseers distrust all blacks, but it is necessary that your slaves trust and depend on us. Gentlemen, these kits are your keys to control. Use them. Never miss an opportunity. My plan is guaranteed, and the good thing about this plan is that if used intensively for 1 year, the slave will remain perpetually distrustful. Signed, William Lynch, 1772. The history books tell us that the text of the speech has been published since at least 1970. It appears on the internet as early as 1993, when a reference librarian at the University of Missouri, St. Louis, posted a document on the library's Gopher server. The librarian later revealed that she had obtained the document from the publisher of a local newspaper, the St. Louis Black Pages, in which the narrative had recently appeared. Though eventually convinced the document was a forgery, the librarian elected to leave it on the Gopher server, as she believed that, quote, even as an inauthentic document, it says something about the former and current state of African America, quote, but added a warning about its provenance. According to the speech's preference, Master Lynch was concerned enough with the fortunes of his slaveholding brethren in the American colonies to present a lecture on the bank of the James River, explaining how to keep unruly servants disunited. The old, he argued, would be pitted against the young, blah, blah, blah. As a historian, I am generally skeptical of smoking guns. Historical work, like forensic science, isn't some flashy field. It depends on the painstaking aggregation of facts that leads researchers to the most likely explanation, but rarely the only one. Slavery was an incredibly complex set of social, economic, and legal relations that literally boiled down to black and white. Given the variation in size of farms, numbers of enslaved workers, region, crops grown, laws, gender ratios, religion, and local economy, it is unlikely that a single letter could explain slave policy for at least 151 years of the institution and its ramifications down to the present day. The second biggest lesson I learned in the gun movement was that anybody that would give you a gun is really a brother or a sister, and anybody trying to take one away from you is really your enemy. Unity is strength. We all can work, but together we win. Your family doesn't have to be all the same shade, have the same parents. A family doesn't need to be perfect. It just needs to be unified. A great writer and a great person once wrote, "Let there be no divisions among you." Aesop said, "United we stand, divided we fall." In the gun community, we are united by our love of the right to keep and bear arms, a love of freedom, a love of the shooting sport. We have learned to fly the air as birds. We have learned to swim the seas as fish. Yet we haven't learned to walk the earth as brothers and sisters. Behold how good and how pleasant it is for brothers to dwell together in unity. Just some stuff to think about as we examine the myth of Willie Lynch, as we examine the things that separate us, as we contemplate all of that in the shooting sports. All right, last week I had Rita Clemens answer some questions, and I asked Tig to actually say the same thing. I have 5 questions. I said, what is the importance of learning gun safety for black women? What does every black woman need before her first class? What do you recommend as a self-defense handgun for women, and why? What are your thoughts on shotguns, and what are your thoughts on rifles? They were quick, down and dirty, but my girl Tig is super busy, and I think she's actually taking a break this week. So she sent her questions or her answers to me by email, not in audio like Rita did. So I'm going to read her responses to the questions. And that theme music was the theme music I had for her when she was on the show. Her first answer was, black women are disproportionately victims of sexual assault and domestic violence crimes. They need to be able to defend themselves. Responsible gun ownership in the black woman community also dispels the, quote, angry black woman myth. Pretty cool. Answer number 2. Every black woman needs an open mind before her first class. Wow. Number 3. I don't recommend guns based off of gender. I suggest women try out several firearms of different brands, calibers, and sizes. Little wisdom there. That's from Tig. Number 4. She says, I love shotguns and think they're great home protection weapons. And she personally has an 870 Remington. And number 5, she says she loves rifles. I think everyone should learn how to use them. I shot the AR-15 for years in the Army. I wish people would understand that there's no such thing as a, quote, assault rifle. The AR stands for Armalite Rifles, the name of the company that developed the AR frame. And that was from Tig Tigner. You can find out more about her at triggerhappypanda.com. Thank you, Miss Tig. And you can hear a lovely voice on episode number 523 of this podcast when I had an interview with her. Love strong black women, especially the ones that you would travel days just to get to sit under, to eat with, to ride or die for. All right, just the other day, I was surprised by a delivery from the FedEx guy. And my friends at AirForce Airguns sent me a Condor SS to review. And you got to check this thing out. I did an unboxing, my first little video of it. Check it out on the internet. It was, that sounds like an old dude, right? Check me out on YouTube. Yeah. Well, see, this gun is pretty cool. Remember the Daisy Red Ryder BB gun? This is not it, baby. This thing has a max fill pressure, has a tank in the back of it, like a pony pack for a scuba tank, 3,000 PSI. It's a single shot. It weighs 6.1 pounds. It's about 38 inches long, has an 18-inch barrel. You can shoot the .177, a .20, a .22, or a .25 caliber out of this thing. It has a 2-stage trigger, and you can get up to 1,300 feet per second, depending on your caliber, your pellet weight, and your power setting, which you can all set. And then it has these amazing optics that they sent me with it that are a boss. These things even had a battery on the side so that the reticle had a red or blue color in it. Space age, man. And there are a couple of foxes and a raccoon that will soon be missing from the neighborhood and not being in my trash cans and looking all nappy like they do. But only after I get this thing down. I plan to do a whole bunch of videos shooting stuff as I learn how to fill it, learn how to shoot it accurately, set everything together before I send the thing back. So check out blackmanwiththegun.tv, and I'll be sending out announcements through the Facebook page once this thing gets put up, because it's an amazing thing, and I think it's a really good option for those who live in the city. Yeah. I'll let your mind wander on that one. But you can check it out at airforceairguns.com. And let me know what you think, what you'd like to see in a video, and any question that you have that I can answer as I work with this bad boy. Hey, motivation check. Do you like this show? Did you find some worth in at least one thing somebody said so far? If you did, you can motivate me by being a sponsor of this podcast. You can give whatever you think it's worth once a month at patreon.com/blackmanwithagun. That's patreon.com/blackmanwithagun. Become an awesome supporter for next month. Thank you. Well, at the time of this recording, there has been some major flooding in the state of Texas. Yeah, you've probably heard about it. It's hurricane season in the United States, and our southern borders are really, really soaked with rain and storms, and people are losing a lot of stuff. So, if you will indulge me, I'm going to pray for Texas and for you. Eternal God, our Father, I thank you for this opportunity that I'm using this medium to reach across miles and time and space. I'm praying for all those in the state of Texas, especially those in Houston and Corpus Christi and all those areas that have been flooded by storms. I'm praying for the listener. I'm praying for my friend. I'm praying for the health of those dealing with cancer and other issues that you know of. I'm praying, Lord God, that you will help and heal them in their situation and your will be done. I ask you first and foremost that you forgive me of everything I've done contrary to what you would have me to be and to do and to say. Forgive me and allow me to be able to approach your throne of grace. I'm praying for my friend's family and for the protection of the little ones returning to school right now. I'm praying, Lord God, I'm asking in the name of your son Jesus that you would help the people affected by the storm, the flood in South Texas. I'm asking you, Lord, that you would touch and help our broken country, our divided nation. Help friends stay friends. Help people who are having a hard time to adjust. Make us all a little tougher, a little stronger, and a little closer together. Help us to remember that we are one nation, a great nation, and we're not going to let anybody separate us and divide us and ruin that good thing that you've given us. Thank you for the freedom which we have. Thank you for this life and for this time. This is my prayer in Jesus' name. Amen. Now, to be honest, I don't know where you are on the faith thing. I don't know if you believe in God or if you even appreciate the fact that I just prayed for you. But I want to thank you for allowing me to do so. All right? All right, I got good news and I got bad news. The good news is I have changed schedules, so I'm working on Monday through Friday now with the weekends off, in theory, so far. We'll see how far it goes, how long it goes. And the bad news is the schedule's throw me off from my podcasting thing and contacting and recontacting people to try to get guests and people on the show. So I have not got Marcus Allen Weldon or Philip Smith from the National African American Gun Association on this week as I had planned. And I guess everybody else had something to do as well. But it's okay. I'm going to press on. I'm hoping that you got something out of our historical piece about Willie Lynch, about the remembrance of 9/11, even my prayer. I am thankful for all of you for being a part of my life. On the Marine Corps birthday and on Veterans Day, November 10th and 11th of November, I've been asked to do the keynote speech at the second annual DC Podfest here in Washington, D.C. So if you are a podcaster and want to see something cool, come on to DC Podfest and you'll be with an intimate group, probably about 50 podcasters that are probably pretty new. And I bet you learn something. Check it out at dcpodfest.com. My quote for the week comes from Ida B. Wells Barnett, and I'll talk about her next week. She said, "A Winchester rifle should have a place of honor in every black home, and it should be used for that protection which the law refuses to give." Booyah! Ida B. Wells, American journalist, born July 16th, 1862, died March 25th, 1931. Well, all right. That's it for this week. I want to thank our regulars and our guests. I want to thank you for listening, downloading, and supporting this show. Big shout out to our Patreon supporters. Thank you for making this show possible. For more information about anybody that has been on the show today, you can find their links and information at blackmanwithagun.com. Just in case nobody has told you this today, I love you, and there's not a damn thing you can do about it. Until next week. Shalom, baby. This show is part of the Gun Podcast Network, an exclusive group showcasing professional pro-gun podcasts and broadcasters, hitting our targets